Cool. Hey everyone, welcome to today's show. My guest today uh is the head of Cloudless Studios, the developer. I guess it's just your game studio, right? It's just you.
Yeah, it's just me. And
Okay.
sometimes um I hire a friend, but it's pretty much a one man show.
Hell yeah. No, Conrad, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I should have asked that. That's just silly. Hey, how you doing? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, doing good. Glad to be here.
No, I appreciate your time today. No, I had played your game. I know you'd sent me a code for it, and I appreciate that. Please stop crying. Which
Hmm.
I have this little graphic here. Please stop crying. Uh, it's on Steam right now. Real uh fun game. Real quick to play. Real inexpensive. Kind of reminded me of like a WarioWare type. Real quick. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I was just wondering like what it's surprisingly entertaining and then scary also. If you do play the game, I got scared the first time I played it. When you created that game, it was just you, right? Just you doing everything, or did you kind of get any help with that?
So I have I have a friend, a very good friend of mine, at Titanium Rat on Twitter. She's a really good artist, and she did a few 3D models. Um, but they weren't textured, so I made all the textures myself, pretty much all the animations, everything. The only thing I really paid for was the music. Um, it was by a guy called Adam Soundworks,
Hmm.
ATUM. So yeah, I kind of sent him some references, and he kind of whipped up the music really fast. So those are the two things really that somebody helped me with, but everything else was just done myself.
No, that's impressive. And I was wondering what because I've seen some of your other content with like your D-makes and stuff. When creating like this game, did you start with like the story or the gameplay? Like what came first to bring you to this idea? It's they're chores, but they're like it's hilarious because it's done in a fearful way. I don't want to give it all away, but it's a fun game.
Yeah, so originally, I'm a dad. I have a little 2 year old baby,
Oh boy.
and yeah, I've played a game called Night of the Consumers, and I have no shame to say that this was definitely inspired by that game. If you don't know about it, it's basically you're like in a grocery store, and these people kind of bug you, and if you don't show them where the correct aisle is, you get fired, which is kind of the idea there. I was like,
Uh-huh.
that's a very popular horror game, you know. Um, why not make something that kind of comes from my heart, you know? Because I know there's that baby game where you're kind of it's like you versus the dad. Um, I forgot what it's called, but it was super popular, and I thought it would be kind of a neat idea, just kind of show you how hectic being a dad can be. So sometimes I'm alone at the house, you know, with the baby, and you got to make sure the baby's happy. But there's also stuff to do at the house, you know. So um, it's kind of like a exaggeration, I guess, of what it feels like.
No, it is truly horror. Me thinking about yeah, the daily regular daily dose of chores and stuff to do around. I know that feeling. It
Yeah.
resonated with me. Um and like I had said before, you're just mostly a one person team for your your studio, other than maybe getting to a little bit of art here and there. Of you mostly just done all like your D makes and all that other stuff has just been really you?
Yeah, everything is pretty much done by me. I mean, I use sometimes free assets here and there, you know. The only thing I really outsource is music. Although
Hmm.
for one of my games, the Rat Catcher, I kind of wanted to see if I can learn to make music. And it's also a little bit of a horror game, so I made some like ambient sounds. But other than that, it's the music's always from somebody else. You know, it's just it's hard to handle everything by yourself. You know.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine. And are you with all these, the game making skills? Are you like self taught, or did you go to school for this? These.
So I I have an art degree, um, which was mostly in animation. But I did take two computer science classes. They're totally unrelated to game dev. It was a Python class and a web development class.
Mhm.
So I really just got into making games when a friend showed me Unity a couple years ago, and he was like, "You can code your own video game," and I just kind of went down that rabbit hole. Maybe like a year in of self teaching myself, just making some prototypes. I got a job at this tiny studio. Um, Actually, I live in America, and it was in. I noticed you're in Austin, right?
I'm in San Antonio, like real close to
Oh,
Austin,
okay.
pretty
So
close.
I worked in Houston,
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
and that job was an Unreal developer job, where I helped develop a couple games. I was mostly programming. That's where I
Mhm.
switched to Unreal, and just doing it every day. I pretty much work all day, and then I get home and I work on my games. So always learning. And last year, I got a job at this oil company where I write simulations in Unreal. So I'm like the head programmer or the department. So it's honestly it's all self taught, just googling stuff as I go. I had to learn basics of the engine and some C++, right?
Mhm.
But just as I went, I kept learning. If I needed to learn something, I would Google it. Like I said, or I'd read some forums. But um, yeah, pretty much all self taught.
And then, like, well, especially I imagine, because I don't know, I know a little bit about the coding thing because I'm taking classes on that too. But I don't nearly know about game development, but it's ever evolving. What with like new technologies and stuff. So I imagine even if you didn't want to learn new stuff, you're always learning new stuff with having to evolve with the technologies. I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a part of it. I think that as a programmer, you can only succeed if you enjoy learning. Because, I mean, let's say I know how to, I find out a way to do a feature, right? Like a year ago. The next time I do the feature, I can do it better, and then the next time I can do it better and cleaner, and write more efficient code. So it's sort of a never-ending process, and the tools do get better. There's now like the visual scripting and it's all these engines in general. They do so much for you. So I think it's definitely easier, but you always have to learn.
Yeah. And you said you had gone to school to with an art degree, or you got an art degree. Was
Mhm.
gaming what you originally wanted to do? Like you said, you got bit by the bug because of by your friend. Originally, did you want to make games, or you wanted to do art, or?
No, honestly, not at all. I never even whenever I was like, I don't know, maybe I was like 20, I thought video games were made by wizards. I didn't even I know it sounds kind of silly, but I didn't even know you could code video games. I thought it was just like some crazy people do it. I wanted to be an animator. I spent like 3 years of my life just animating. I would make short movies and things like that. And then, I guess kind of reality hit me that like it's very hard to get a job as an animator.
Mm.
So I wanted to learn programming, and that was like my second love, you know. So I never really intended on making games until I accidentally jumped into it, and now it's like the best thing ever. I do it every day.
No, it's a great and that's good that you what's the word, like love doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like you never work a day in your life if you do love what you do, love to do.
yeah. I think a lot of people who get into game dev and they have this, they hear about Eric Barone, Stardew Valley, or Notch for Minecraft, right? They think it's like this super easy way to get rich, right? And it's incredibly hard to make any money on your games, right? It's a lot of people quit. A lot of people make their first game, it fails, and they just give up because they expect it to be perfect.
Hmm.
So if you have this attitude that you kind of do it because you love doing it, it's a lot easier to handle failures, and it's a lot easier to keep going. Because this most recent game that I made, my DMX were okay. They had some views on YouTube, but this was like my first proper game that made some money. Um, and it took me like 4 years to get there, you know. So, and by any means, I didn't make like a lot of money. I just made a little bit of a profit, right? So it
Hmm.
just shows you how brutal it is and how kind of disciplined and motivated you have to be.
Then also, I'm sure you're making. It's different when you're making something that you would want to play and that you would love to play versus there's people out there like you said who I want to make a game to be rich, and so you're making a game for the masses or other people or what you think is trendy. You just want to make a game. Hey, I think this would be fun. I'd have fun playing it. I'm gonna make it and put it out there.
Yeah, um, that's a good point. You know, there's all these marketing talks about what genres sell, which ones don't, and everyone's like, don't make a platformer because it won't sell. It's oversaturated, and it's like make a 4X game or make a strategy game. See, I could never do that because I just don't enjoy the popular games really.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the people that just do it straight because they hope they'll get money, they won't make a good game. And I think what matters most is making a good game. I think that's the most important thing. Of course, if you enjoy the game you're making, it's much easier to make a good game.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you put your heart into it, I guess.
Mhm.
You'd say. In I did see you touched on it quick. Your on your YouTube channel, you do a lot of, or not a lot, but a few demakes of
Yeah.
games in the that classic PlayStation, PSX, PlayStation One, whatever
Mhm.
they call it, aesthetic. Do you think people like because I see a lot of games going that route now where they choose to use that aesthetic. Do you think it's like a great style and that's why it's chosen, or it's just like a novelty of nostalgia, with it?
I think it's a bit of both. Um, and first of all, you can make a PS1 style game look really ugly, you know. Um, and I'm like, when we're talking about actual PS1 games like Metal Gear Solid, or I don't know, Tomb Raider or something like that, they were going for realism, right? That's just what they had at the time. And nowadays, I feel like some people who go for the PlayStation 1 style, they just kind of do it because it's easy. Because I mean, let's be honest here, it's much easier to do. Um, Maybe not easier. Maybe you can get away with more, right? You can be a
Hmm.
little bit more lazy when you're modeling, when you're doing your texturing, right? But I think it can also be a very beautiful style if you do it properly. There's a lot of people that do kind of this like 3D pixel art style, which is kind of what I'm trying to do for my next game. And I kind of tried it in the Please Stop Crying. If you look at the characters, their mom and the baby,
Hmm.
all the textures were hand drawn. So some people are like really good at making that kind of art, and I think it looks wonderful. So I think there's some nostalgia to it, but it's definitely um, popular because it's easier than realistic styles.
No, it makes sense. And yeah, I was just curious about that because it feels like there's a influx of that of a lot of games going for that, and I didn't know if you could answer that too. If it's the developers like yourself, like you just said, it's maybe a little bit easier because you can kind of mask certain things.
Hmm.
But do you think it's like because in the past they were working with that because that was limitations. Now there's really like no limitations, but we're still kind of like giving yourself that you know
Yeah.
uh amount of, I don't know, not space because you work with however much space, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna try to develop this like a PlayStation One game with maybe that just like limited art style or graphics or capabilities, you know?
I mean, I think it's also due to the fact that it's pretty popular. I mean, people like it, right? If it was people wouldn't play PSX games, they nobody would make them, right? I think it's like I said, if a good artist does it, it can look really good. And the best sort of comparison to this is pixel art, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the 80s, I mean, pixel art's all you could do. But nowadays, people make platformers or just 2D games in general that are just pure pixel art and people don't mind at all. So I think in the hands of a good artist, it can be a very good style.
And how as far as the gaming industry like right now, how do you feel about like these AAA games being, you know, like I don't know, crapped on by you know the people or you know magazines or websites or these indie games getting maybe more focus and notice, like do you think the game like the industry's kind of shifting like that to where indies are becoming more like have more power, I guess, over the bigger budgets and bigger companies, you know?
Um, I think maybe in the PC space, a lot more people are playing indie games, right? But the casual gamer, right? They're not really gonna pick up uh, like a $3 game on Steam, right? They're gonna play their Call of Duties or the GTA's, right? I think the AAA scene right now is seen in a bad light because of all the layoffs and all the constant pushes for profit, right? Neglecting the artists, the people who actually make the games. Um, so I can see sort of I wouldn't even call this the majority of gamers. I would say maybe the PC gamers, the ones that kind of dip their toes into the smaller studios and the one man teams, those kinds of games.
Hmm.
There is a bit more of a shift to that, but overall, I think AAA games are always going to be more popular than indie games. I think it's just they just have more power. They have more money. No matter how many people they fire, they can just do more than an indie team can, right?
Hmm.
But I mean,
No.
it's good that more people are playing indie games. I think there's definitely more people playing indie games because you know one of the best things is that they're cheaper, right? Not everybody has $60 to spend on a game. People can
Mhm.
buy like 3 games for $10, right? So it's a little bit more accessible, especially in like poorer countries. So
No, I've noticed that. Yeah, and then going on the other side, like to the side of the gamers, how do you feel about gamers currently? Do you feel like they're more critical or they're jaded by flashy graphics or bigger open worlds? You know, a lot of and I'm not saying all gamers, but as far as like that toxic scene where they're like, "Oh, this game, look at these terrible graphics, but they're beautiful Spider-Man, reflective water, you know, et cetera, et cetera." You know, how do you like? Do you think gamers? I don't know. How do you feel about gamers right now?
I know what you mean. I've seen a lot of reviews like that on Steam. Um, I think it's just people kind of lack the understanding of how games are made. Which I mean, I don't blame anybody because not many people really, unless you're in the game dev scene, not many people really take an interest in that. But I think expectations always keep rising, and I think it's all this kind of negativity is due to the fact that a lot of studios, especially like AAA studios, they deliver unfinished games, and this has been happening a lot more recently, right? Let's
Mhm.
say 10 years ago, right? There was I don't even remember a single game that was like horrible on launch, right? And nowadays, almost every game is broken at launch. And I think all these big games are getting too big to handle for the developers. There's just there's just not enough time and people to kind of handle everything. And if a game's not perfect, gamers are going to complain, you know. And I
Hmm.
think it's that stigma of the recent sort of events. Um, Now, do I agree with them complaining about things like graphics and all that? I mean it's a little silly, you know. I don't think somebody should complain about Spider-Man because it's a great game. But people will always find something to hate on, so it doesn't really surprise me. I've seen amazing games get just super dumb reviews for no reason, so it's just it doesn't really surprise me that gamers are like that sometimes.
Yeah, and that goes with, I guess, the whole entertainment uh industry in general, right? Like everyone just wants to kind of crap on something. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I've
No,
noticed
no.
that like um, all these new shows that are coming out, you know, everybody just wants to criticize them. Either for its like inclusivity or something, you know. I've watched the Have you seen the new Fallout show?
No, I've been meaning to.
Yeah.
It's on my list, but it looks good. You know,
I've watched the first episode, it's really good. But I've seen somebody complain that the actress that plays the main role, like her butt was too small or something, you know? So people will just find anything to hate on nowadays, which, you know, as a developer, I guess, somebody who can um whose games may get reviewed, you know, you just kind of take all the valuable criticism, right? And then just you have to this just goes out to anybody who makes media or entertainment. You just
mhm.
have to ignore the dumb hate, you know. I mean, because valid criticism is fine. Like if you release like a poorly optimized game, that's 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 something that you should fix. But if somebody doesn't like the color of the skin of your character, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Feedback. It's take some of it is valuable, of course,
Yeah.
from the consumer, but some of it's just silly. And how do you feel now? I know I don't know who you would feel about with coding and all that. The use of AI now. And I know this is a silly question because I see people saying like, "Oh, AI is being used in games." I mean, AI has always been in games, right? Like with NPCs and stuff. But how do you feel
Um,
like
I
with
think
AI right now?
I think people I think it's a different definition of AI right there.
Yeah.
I think then I'm totally I'll just say I'm kind of totally anti AI,
Hmm.
especially for AI art. Um, I think it's a bit of an insult to like traditional artists, you know, because I can just totally see Steam being flooded by like these completely horrible looking AI games. Um, and you know, I don't really agree with it. You know, I think that if you want to do entertainment, you should hire actual artists and actual programmers to do it. You know, I don't mind using these tools to sort of help you a little bit. You
Hmm.
know, if you want to like run your code through ChatGPT to see if you have a bug, that's fine. But I mean, there's people who just, I mean, there's people in my school um, that use AI to write their homeworks. You know, I think it's kind of defeating the purpose of the craft of making games. You know, I think if you rely too much on AI, it's um, it's not gonna end well in the long run. And I saw this tweet. It was about the CEO of Nvidia.
Hmm.
He said something like, "We should stop teaching kids to program. We should teach them how to write prompts." And I thought
Oh
that was like
Lord.
I thought that was the most idiotic thing anybody could have said. because I mean, what happens when AI's there? Like when AI is not there to help you, you know, what are
Hmm.
you gonna do then? I think it's kind of killing our critical thinking. Like I said, to an extent, it's fine to use if you're sort of using it as an assistant, but some people are just basically using AI to do everything, and I think that's a bit unhealthy and unethical. And then AI art is like a complete no for me.
Yeah, it has no soul in it or whatever you would want to call it. You know, whatever you
Yeah,
believe in. It it know it knows what to draw, but it doesn't know why it's drawing it or what to put heart
yeah,
to put into it. You know.
yeah. And you know, I'm friends with a lot of great artists, you know, and I mean, some of them get less commissions, some of them lose their jobs because of that, and I think it kind of sucks. And a lot of people who are pro AI art, they're kind of they don't really have any empathy, you know, because it hasn't affected them, you know.
Hmm.
So it's like I always try to put myself in somebody's shoes, and I think AI art hurts a lot of the artists in the industry.
Definitely, it's even affecting writers, actors.
Oh
I
yeah,
know
writers,
I've seen
translators.
voiceover actors, voiceover actresses losing work because of
Yeah,
AI. So yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. As far as yeah, it's a tool. It should be used like a tool, not completely like a crutch to
yeah.
replace a person. Um, what's in as far as I know you've released Please Stop Crying. What's the hardest part of like actually creating, developing, releasing the game? Like, what's been the hardest part of it? You would think like
Of
from the
this
beginning
game
to
or
the
of
end.
any game?
Just in general, we'd say like creating a game and then putting it out there
Okay.
to the players. What would you say is the hardest part of it?
So I'm gonna go a little bit abstract, um, because if you want like the technical answer, I think the hardest part about making games is actually marketing your game, reaching out to people and getting them to play it.
Hmm.
But the sort of real answer I want to say here is the hardest part is making a good game, right? Because like if you know how to program and if you know how to make art, making the features isn't too difficult, right? Which is why I think the game designer role is very sort of undervalued. People kind of overlook it, but it's a very important role because designing good features is the hard part. Um, like you have to make something that's fun, you know, and if you play it and it's just you in your room every day and you do it over and over, you're gonna think it's great, right? But it might not be great, right? So it's very hard to judge if you've made a fun game. So I think that is the hardest bit about it. Of course, I mean, as long as you jump over that beginner stage where you're using tutorials and stuff, when you start doing things on your own, it's that finding those ideas and converting them into something fun. I think that's the hardest part about making games.
And then marketing's probably the close second.
Yeah, yeah. Marketing is it helps if you have a good game, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, I've seen some decent games on Steam that have like nobody's ever played, which I mean, it's kind of a shame. And then I've seen people get really lucky, right, with the right person retweeting their game. Um, one of these examples is this game called Northern Journey. It was made by this like weird Norwegian guy,
Hmm.
and the game like nobody knew about it until somebody I think it was the one of the developers of Bloomwood. He tweeted about it, and like ever since that, the game kind of blew up. You know, so like you kind of have to get lucky, even if you make a good game, or you have to be really good at marketing.
Hmm.
So I think it's kind of tough to get there.
Yeah, but it all starts with making that good game.
Yeah. So I will tell you, I released Please Stop Crying with 40 wish lists, right? Which is like a total sin in Steam. You're like not supposed to release with unless you have a couple thousand because your game gets buried.
Mm.
Um, and I'm really grateful to all the people that follow me on Twitter because whenever I made the announcement, um, got quite a bit of retweets, and somehow there was a YouTuber with like 5 million subscribers that covered the game like on the first day of release.
Oh man.
So I still don't really know why it kind of got popular, um, but I guess I could attribute it to a little bit of luck. You know, sometimes you need a bit of luck.
Yeah, sometimes it's right place, right time. It just
Yeah.
happens. No, it's that's good to know. I've here any advice you'd want to give to people wanting to develop a game, or where to start, or just any advice you wish you could give yourself after so many years of learning, trial and error.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a place to give a little bit of advice now. Um, because I was kind of always looking for the right answers, but here's kind of what my philosophy is now, I guess. So, if you're just starting out, make a game that you know you can finish. That's the number one thing because too many people get lost into prototypes that they don't release. So if it has to be a tiny game, make a tiny game. If you know you can finish your dream project of like 5 years, then do that. I don't think there's like a set amount of time. But the number one advice, I guess, is that I guess take any advice with a grain of salt, right? Um, because a lot of people kind of go watch game dev or marketing advice and they just kind of follow it to the T, and it doesn't work 100%, right? It's like I said, there's like genres that are recommended that you should make, but not everybody should make those games. There's still there's still pixel platformers that are going to succeed. There's still horror games that are going to succeed, There's still these sort of oversaturated games that somebody will make a game in, and maybe I should have said genres, oversaturated genres. Somebody will come in, make a game in that genre, and it's going to be a great game. So I think it's take any advice with a grain of salt, even my advice, and then just kind of make the game you want to make. Make
Hmm.
something cool, make something that comes from your heart or that speaks to you, something that you'd want to play, right? Because ultimately, you never really know. Like you could hate making a strategy game for 2 years, or you can make a platformer. It could be amazing and it could sell a lot of copies. So it's really important to come from like a passion point of view.
No, definitely. No, it's great advice. And any teases you can give us for your upcoming projects? What are you working on currently, or what do you have like next in store? What's the future like for Cloudless Studios?
So I've been kind of prototyping a lot, and I'm pretty certain I'm gonna go for something a little bit longer. Um, I'm thinking of a 3D Metroidvania sort of platformer based on movement. I want to try out a new art style. I want to try out custom animations. So I definitely want to make some sort of Metroidvania platformer. And I've been working on a character. It's a lady, but it's not ready yet, so I can't really show. But I'll be tweeting about it soon enough on my Twitter. Maybe I'll
Cool.
make some devlogs. So um, yeah, but it's gonna be a little bit bigger than my previous games, and hopefully I can finish it.
No, that's always good to have something to look forward to. So I'm
Yeah.
glad no you share that with us. Yeah, no, I appreciate your time today. I really do. Where can everyone find you? I know you have on Twitter you're at Cloudless Studio. on YouTube, your youtube.com/at Cloudless Studio. And Please Stop Crying is available on Steam uh, to purchase. Where else can they find you? Or is there anywhere else?
You got my Twitter or X, whatever it's called now.
Yeah, whatever it is.
No, I really just use Twitter and YouTube. Um, yeah, that's all my platforms.
Okay, cool. No, well, I appreciate your time. It's a fun game to play. Please Stop Crying. Everyone should check it out on Steam. It's just a few bucks and fun. I don't even know if I want to try to get that one last achievement because I I barely beat that game. The skin of my teeth, like with 5 seconds left. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
some people are crazy. They're beating it with like a minute, and some I
I've
couldn't do
seen I've seen some of that where they put like the vacuum in front of the baby to keep it kind of
that.
like
Yeah,
stuck somewhere. I say people are crazy the way they rip your games apart like that, I imagine. Uh
yeah.
but yeah, again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and yeah, good luck to the future of everything you do. Uh, I hope everything goes as successful as it can go.
I appreciate it, and thank you for having me. It was good to kind of share my experience, and pretty fun to be on a podcast.
No, thank you. Thanks everyone else for listening. See you tomorrow. Take care, guys.